Good morning, all. Thank you to be here for this first webinar of ESN. And first of all, I would like to give the stage to Dottoressa Laura Barberi, Head of Unit International Relations, Directorate General for the Supervision of System Port Authorities, Maritime and Island Waterways Transport of the Italian Ministry of Transport.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. And first of all, I wish to thank RAM for the effort in developing the 2022 ESN program within the Italian presidency, which will focus on the development of the short sea shipping with an outlook towards 2027. Given the great importance of short sea shipping for Italy, as representative of the Ministry for Sustainable Infrastructure and Mobility, I would like to thank the European Short Sea Network and RAM for the organization of today's webinar, focused on the importance of eco-incentives for short sea shipping and the maritime sector. The development of a multimodal and smart transport system is a priority for our ministry, which follows all related issues contributing to reaching the targets set by the Green Deal. In Italy, eco-incentive schemes such as eco-bonus, ferro-bonus, hydro-bonus have always been an important instrument to support the sustainable development of multimodal maritime transport. In particular, the 2021-2027 period will be of great importance since short sea shipping will have a crucial role in facing the several challenges of the transport sector in the upcoming years. The European Short Sea Network can give its contribution involving private and public stakeholders in the discussion and debate on important issues such as digitalization, sustainability, connectivity, and resilience of the transport sector. Thus, the European Short Sea Network can contribute to renew the discussion on the future of short sea shipping, outlining its role in the framework of the challenges that the transport sector needs to face to comply with the objectives of the Green Deal and of the European Commission's Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, while maintaining its competitivity. So I just wish to thank you for your attention. I wish everybody a good day's work. And now I leave the floor to Mr. Benevolo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. So we are very happy to be here today for this webinar organized by the ESN network, which operates since a few years. We are a network of short sea shipping official national offices in different countries to promote short sea shipping, as you know. And this year, Italy has the presidency of the network. In this contest, we organized the program of work to discuss some issues of relevant interest for short sea shipping, in particular the issue of the eco incentives and the guidelines for state aid of maritime sector, and the issues of digitalization, of innovation, and the revision process of TEN-T network. And we would like to present at the end of these two webinars we are going to organize, the first today and the next in July, the month of July. In the month of September, during the Maritime Days in Naples, we would like to organize a specific space of discussion of ESN to present a position paper of the network to discuss the issues we analyzed during the webinars. So today, for the first issue, we would like to discuss of the importance of eco-incentives for short sea shipping and the maritime sector, including the necessity to revise the current guidelines on state aid in the maritime sector. We will have the presentation of the draft proposal of ESN by our Germany SPC, Markus Nolk, Managing Director of Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport. We have the pleasure to have with us to discuss this Olga Simeon, Policy Officer of DG Competition, who could tell us something about state aid to maritime intermodal transport. After a little break, we have a discussion table of maritime stakeholders with Antonio Gongora, Head of Intermodality and Logistics, Puerto del Estado, Isabel Reikbos, Secretary General of ESPO, and the representative of the Shipowners Association in Italy, Lorenzo Matacena, a Consigliere of Confitarma, Italian Shipowners Association, and Dario Barzagan, Head of EU Office of the Assarmatori Shipowners Association. So we have a very important agenda today to discuss this issue. The reflection who moved us to discuss is that in each country in Europe with the PNRR plans or not, we have since a lot of years different scheme of incentive to incentivize motorways of the sea and maritime sector, ports and so on. The environmental issues, the digitalization issue are increasing this opportunity of incentivization for this sector, and so could be useful to try to find a common approach to these incentivization schemes. We worked together with Spain, Portugal, and France to eco-incentive for motorways of the sea. Spain is adopting this scheme in these days. We are trying to move our new scheme to incentivization of motorways of the sea in the next months, and so on. So could be useful to discuss together this issue, to find a common point of view or different points, and to discuss also the legal basis for this incentive, because we know that maritime guidelines for state aid are of 2004 and speak us about the possibility to incentivize startup of upgrade of maritime lines for motorways of the sea, but not modal shift. On the contrary, we know that railway guidelines for of 2008 permit to incentivize modal shift in intermodality road railway for roller railway. So we would like to push our stakeholders and our institutions to change this legal basis, to consent to permit to the different member states to incentivize motorways of the sea and maritime sector in order to facilitate modal shift and not only the startup of upgrade of new maritime lines. We know that with respect to the 2004, the scenario is deeply changed, and so it's not so relevant to aid new lines of motorways of the sea, but could be useful to incentivize the demand of transport to use the actual lines of motorways of the sea. So the debate is open, obviously, and this reflection of this morning could be a help from ESN, contribute to the ESN, to DG Move and the European Commission to reflect and to obtain a proposal to change the actual scenario of motorways of the sea. So Thank you all for this participation, and we can open our job of today with the stage to Marcus Nork for the presentation of the draft proposal of ESN position paper. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Greetings from Germany, and thank you very much indeed, Francesco, for the kind invitation and for the organization of this workshop. Yes, my name is Marcus Nölke. I'm the Managing Director of the Short Sea Shipping Inland Waterway Promotion Center, Germany. And the Inland Waterway Promotion Center is a little different to my colleagues and friends from the other short sea promotion centers in Europe, because we in Germany have an inland waterway system of approximately 7,300 kilometers, and most of this system is suitable for freight transport on barges. And this is the reason why we have in our name Inland Waterway. So we promote short sea shipping and the inland waterway system in Germany. But also we have a very strong focus on the multimodal aspect, because we have a rail network of something around 38,000 kilometers in Germany. So rail transport can also be a very good alternative to the road transport if short sea shipping or inland waterway shipping is not possible. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be the speaker for the next minutes in this panel, and I have much more information as I can share with you in this time. But don't worry, as I've heard, you will get the presentation after the workshop, so that you can read everything in detail. Okay, so I will try to share the screen and to open the presentation. Just a minute. Okay, and so I hope you can see the presentation and hear me.
Everything's fine, thank you.
Okay, so I can start with the presentation. Yes, this is my topic: analysis of eco-incentive schemes implemented in the ESN countries for the development of multimodal maritime transport. Maybe good to mention that in the ESN countries, I don't know exactly, but I think we have at the moment something around 14 or 15 short sea promotion center in Europe, which are members of the European short sea network. And so we have different situations in each country, and I have received information from 6 ESN countries, how they promote short sea shipping with incentives or funding programs from Croatia, Finland, Germany, Italy, Norway, and Spain. And I will introduce this to you in alphabetical order in the next minute. So starting with Croatia, maybe it's also good or important to mention that Croatia is in the meantime in operation under the name of the multimodal promotion center, I think, like our colleagues in Portugal. So some short sea promotion center operate in the meantime as a multimodal promotion center. So this is the overview I have received from our friends from Croatia. I have to mention that I'm not so in detail in programs and funding programs of other countries, so it's also hard for me to be this in Germany. So I will keep this very focused, and you can read this and you will get that in advance after the workshop. This is from Croatia. introduction of a program for the combined transport of cargo and ordinance on incentives in combined transport of cargo in the period from 2016 to 2018. So there are two parts: incentives for the combined transport for goods by rail, inland, waterway, or sea, and the other one, incentives in combined transport of goods by road. And as you can read here, in case of the combined transport by rail, inland, waterway, or sea, just a minute, I have to close the window here. By sea, the organizer of the transport shall be entitled to a fee of approximately 20 euro per truck or trailer or semi-trailer with or without a tow truck. And regarding the combined transport of goods by road, you can see that the owner or user of motor vehicles and trailer vehicles registered in Croatia for 12 months from the date of the last validation of the vehicle's technical validity have carried out cargo transport in the initial and or the final segment to or from the railway, combined terminal or transshipment station shall be exempted from the obligation to pay the annual fee for the use of public roads up to maximum of 50% payable on the registration of motor vehicles and motor vehicles as determined by special regulation. We have something similar in Germany, as you can see after the next chart. In Finland, from Finland, I have received this chart, the Finnish national regulation for the support to environmental investments on vessel during the period 2010 to 2014. And the Finnish Ministry of Transport granted the huge amount of 60 million euro in total government state aid for environmental investments for ships. And in addition to this, some ports like Helsinki, Langnes, Mariehamn, and Rauma give discounts related to vessel actions related to environmental issues. Then we come to Germany. In Germany, this is a little bit easier for me to introduce to you. We have a number of funding programs, and I have chosen two programs which I think are very interesting and very attractive here in the German market. At first, we have a funding program for sustainable modernization of coastal ships. This funding program has three goals. That is it should set an innovation impulses for coastal ships, should increase the energy efficiency, and it should increase the sustainability of the existing ships. This is important to say. This is a funding program for the modernization of existing ships, not for new ships. And this should reach that the coastal ships or vessels will be more environmental friendly and more competitive in the competition and the freight competition of freight transport, especially compared with the road transport. And through innovation impulses and financial incentives for existing ships, the aim is to reduce air pollutants and greenhouse gases and to become an improvement in the energy efficiency of the ships in general. And the focus is on sustainability and openness to technology. engine modernization and measure tools reduce pollutants and improve energy efficiency as defined in the directive are eligible for funding, and this is intended to contribute to achieving the climate protection, air pollution control, and sustainability goals of the German government. This is originally from the funding program. This is regarding short sea shipping. And then we have a very successful program in Germany regarding the land transport side. This is regarding the combined transport. We have a guideline for the promotion of combined transport, transshipment facilities in Germany. This means the transport of goods in one and the same standardized loading unit like container or swap body, semi-trailer, or in the case of the rolling road, also complete truck, where the loading unit, including the goods, changes the mode of transport. Within the framework of the funding program, investments by non-federally owned companies in the new construction and expansion of container transshipment facilities are financially supported. At the moment, we have a discussion in Germany to extend this funding program to the heavy goods transport, in addition to the container transport. But this is in discussion at the moment to extend this program. And there are a lot of good reasons to promote the combined transport. So in Germany, you can work with the 41 tons rule. We have a maximum weight truck and a freight of 40 tons in Germany in general. But in case of combined transport, you can work with 44 tons. You have exemption from vehicle tax, low toll costs, exemption from driving bans. You have reliable transit times, cost advantages through mass means of transportation. You have a reduction of street congestion, CO2 reduction, high transportation security, economic use of modes of transport. And we're also a very huge problem in the meantime in Germany, but I think also in your country, that we have an enormous lack of drivers. And so in this case, a higher use of the combined transport can be a very attractive advantage for the freight transport. So these both funding programs in Germany are in operation. They are very successful. They are extended, and I hope it will bring much more freight from the road to inland waterway, to rail, and to short sea shipping. Yeah, let's have a look on our friends in Italy. They have mentioned 3 programs: the Eco Bonus from 2007 to 2010, and the Mare Bonus for the period of 2017 to 2020, and then the Hydro Bonus of 2020 to 2022. And this is really very interesting and totally different to that what we do here in Germany. But in these programs, you give straight benefit or bonus to the mode of transport, and this is different to that how we work here in Germany. And then to Norway, incentive scheme for investments in efficient and environmentally friendly ports from this year, from 2022, with a state budget of almost 10 million euros, and this grants can be given to port.
La voglio svoltare, pensi che dobbiamo... Tu hai messo la carta, c'è la carta
sorry, I hear, okay. And this grants can be given to port and port facilities owners and operators. And these investments include investments in construction, replacement or upgrading of port infrastructure, And non-eligible investments include investment in alternate fuel infrastructure, investments in railway trucks, costs for non-transport related activities, and costs for port superstructure. And the last chart regarding this part comes from our friends from Spain. They have the Spanish Eco Incentive Program for the period of 2022 to 2024 with the goal to consolidate, increase the modal share of maritime freight transport and promoting the improvement of the environmental performance and the modal shift with objective sustainability criteria. And it also includes aids for the adoption of proposal technologies with alternative energies in the maritime sector. So you can see it's a wide spread of different initiatives and programs in the European countries, and I think it's very important to see, and I think it's very good to see on this examples here that is absolutely necessary to bring the whole, or to make the whole transport chain more environmentally friendly, beginning from the road transport to the railway, to the inland waterway, and to the sea transport. And it is also important to include the ports because the ports are the very important aspect, and I say in the ports make the decision if we can shift cargo from road to other modes of transports. If the ports are have a very good infrastructure, a very good superstructure, a very good geographical position, then it's much easier to shift cargo from road to other modes of transport. And so it's important that, for example, here in Germany, we have a big number of seaports, but we also have a big number of inland ports and combined transport terminals, so that you have no long distances to next possibility to move from road to other modes of transport. And so you can see the different programs here in the European countries focus on ports or on combined transport or on short sea shipping. But I think they all follow one important thing in general. Of course, we must bring more sustainability in the logistic chain in general, but also especially in the maritime chain, because only if we have sustainable maritime transport, then we can compete with the other modes of transport, and then we can achieve the big goal to shift much more freight from road to inland waterway, to short sea shipping, or to the railway transport. Okay, that was the last chart of my part. Don't worry, as I said, you will get the presentation in advance, so you can read in everything in detail. And if you have a question to this programs, you can ask me, or you can ask my friends in the countries, and I'm sure that they can give you much more information for this. So in this case, I think I am ready. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will give back, I think, to Francesco.
Thank you, Marcus, for the analysis, for the synthesis of this relevant information. And thank you to all the short shipping offices of the network for the contribution to this analysis, which is useful to to verify the rich quantity of proposals that we have in different countries, and so the need, I told you before, to discuss an homogeneous approach to these incentives. So the basis of this presentation, I asked to Olga Simeon, thank you Olga, to be here with us today, of the European Commission DG Competition, for comments and on this presentation and others. You have the stage, Olga. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco, and thanks to you all for inviting me today in this to join you in this very important appointment to discuss the future of short sea shipping and the possibilities to finance this key sector, in particular in this particular moment where the Green Deal has reset, let's say, the European priorities. I'm happy to join you as a representative of the unit in DG Competition dealing with the state aid in transport. And in particular, I'm currently involved in the ambitious project to review the guidelines for state aid to railways with a strong intermodal focus, which will include not only railways, the railway sector, but also other key sectors which play really a key role in the intermodal chain. I'm very happy to have the opportunity today to clarify, and this is my main objective in this presentation, to clarify the applicable rules to maritime transport in the context of the state aid legislation in the transport sector. Let's say that more specifically, I would like to clarify the applicable rules from a different angle. We are normally used to approach maritime transport and short sea shipping and the public financing of short sea shipping from a sectorial perspective. And we normally think of the state aid railway guideline, maritime guidelines as the legal framework applicable to subsidize short sea shipping. However, as I said, today I would like to give you a different angle to deal with public incentives to short sea shipping and maritime transport. And the purpose of my presentation is in particular to explain and to underline that whilst state aids are normally perceived unfortunately as a kind of obstacle, as a problem when setting up public incentives, public support to a certain area, to a certain transport activity, this is not the case. And I would like to show you that state aids and state aid rules should be seen as an opportunity, and the more we know about it, the more we can do. The state aid framework should be used in the toolbox that we normally use to set up public support for transport, and in particular for maritime transport and short sea shipping. I will now share a presentation. I hope that you will be able to see it. Please let me know if you can see the slides.
Yes, everything is fine, thank you.
Perfect. So my presentation is divided in two parts. Let's say in the first part, I would like to clarify, as I said, what are the rules applicable to the transport sector, and in particular to maritime transport. But today we will focus on maritime transport as a key link in the intermodal chain. What should be clarified is a kind of technicality which makes stated rules in transport, I would say, somehow more complicated than in other areas. On the one side, the treaty provides rules for state aids, and this is in Title 7. We have all the state aid articles and principles in the Title 7 concerning competition. And in this title, we have Article 107, which covers aviation and maritime transport as economic activities. But the treaty provides for a specific set of rules applicable to rail, road, and inland waterways. And these stated rules for land transport, which includes also inland waterways, is enshrined in Title 6, which is dedicated to transport. So it is the transport chapter of the treaty. So what should be clarified is that we have two different legal bases for dealing with state aid in transport. And these two legal bases have really different, I would say, mindsets in the treaty. The title concerning transport, and in particular Article 93, concerns state aid which are meant to be compatible if they meet the needs of coordination of transport, or if they represent the compensation for public service obligations, and this is in the context of land transport. On the other hand, we have in the Title 7 the stated rules applicable to all economic activities, and within economic activities, it is included also aviation and maritime sector. In the slide, I put in red what I want to highlight, which is the different wording in terms of compatibility. What is considered to be compatible in the context of land, meaning rail, road, and inland waterway transport, and in the coordination of transport, the treaty is very strong. It's very strong. It says that aid shall be compatible. On the other hand, in Article 107, in particular in the derogation under paragraph 3C, economic activities, certain economic activities can be subsidized and the aid can be compatible, may be considered to be compatible. There is a discretion, higher discretion of the European Commission in identifying compatibility conditions. So you will see that the two different legal bases have different wording and different mindset. Article 93 is the legal basis for land, road, and the inland waterway transport, and the rules applicable to this area have been clarified in the state aid railway guidelines, and as regards public service obligations in the block exemption regulation 1370 of 2007. On the other hand, maritime and aviation covered by Article 107.3c, the rules applicable to these sectors have been clarified by the Commission in the aviation guidelines, in the maritime guidelines, and as regards public service compensations, public service obligations in the so-called SGI package. So we have really two different toolboxes for the two different transport areas. And the reason why there are two different set of rules is explained by the treaty, by Article 100, because the treaty says that the title concerning transport covers transport by rail, road, and inland waterways, which means that Article 93 concerns only these transport sectors. Now, coming back to maritime transport, and in particular to short sea shipping, which is the target of today's webinar. What are the applicable rules in this particular area? Well, what I would like to clarify is to try and abandon the sectorial mindset and to focus on the primary objective pursued by the incentive, the public incentive. So the rules applicable depend on the primary objective that is pursued and by the aid beneficiary as a consequence. So if the primary objective is to incentivize maritime transport activities, including short sea shipping, well, the applicable rules will be Article 107.3c and the state aid maritime guidelines. On the contrary, if the primary objective is to increase the environmental protection and the energy efficiency, then we will have again Article 107.3c, the climate and environmental and energy guidelines, including all the block exemption corresponding articles. If the primary objective is to develop the port's infrastructure, we have certain specific provisions within the general block exemption regulation. And last but not least, which is the focus of today's presentation, if the primary objective is the coordination of transport, then we will use the rules enshrined in Article 93 of the treaty, which is in the chapter dedicated to transport, and in particular, Section 6 of the State Aid Railway Guidelines, which have clarified what means coordination of transport. Of course, we, as I said, we are normally used to have a sectorial mindset, and we normally look at public incentives to state aid and state aids to short sea shipping and maritime using the maritime guidelines. And normally, the way we have seen, as we also learned from the previous clear presentation, the way we have member states have incentivized the sector is linked to the maritime guidelines, and in particular to the Section 10 of the maritime guidelines, which provide rules for aid to short sea shipping, and in particular aid to start up in favor of European ship owners for the launch of short sea shipping services between ports within Europe. A clear example in Italy is the Mare Bonus aid scheme. But this is not the only approach that can be used to support maritime and short sea shipping. And this is why I'm now turning the focus to Article 93 and to the main objective of supporting coordination of transport. In the slide, you see the very short and clear wording of the treaty in respect to aid that shall be compatible if it meets the needs of transport coordination. But what does it mean, meet the needs of transport coordination? Well, this meaning, as I said, was clarified by the Commission in 2008 in the Railway Guidelines in Chapter 6. And coordination of transport means sustainability, meaning trying to minimize or reduce to the minimum the external costs of transport. It means intermodality, supporting interoperability within one specific transport sector, but also the coordination of different transport modes. It means intermodality, meaning combining different transport modes to allow for more sustainable transport solution. All this is aid for the coordination of transport. And the legal basis from the state aid legislation is Article 93. This is very important. And the state aid railway guidelines have codified in the Section 6 certain specific types of aid that is a kind of toolbox that member states and granting authorities have at their disposal to support coordination of transport. We have investment aid, in particular for interoperability and specifically as regards rail transport noise reduction. But we also have, and this is the focus that I would like to draw your attention to, is operating aid in the form of aid that reduces the cost of the services, of the operation of certain freight services. In particular, the focus that I would like to make is on the aid in the form of reduction of the external cost, which is particularly relevant for short sea shipping and maritime transport, because that should be seen as a key link in the intermodality. Section 6 of the railway guidelines explains what is coordination of transport, explains what is Article 93 and coordination of transport, and what are the main compatibility criteria, which are very simple and reflect the general state aid approach. So the Commission, when it assesses a state aid scheme in this area, identifies and clarifies whether the scheme really meets the needs of coordination of transport. It ensures that the aid is necessary and proportionate, that there is no overcompensation in respect to the cost. The incentive effect of the measure means that the state aid should change the behavior of the beneficiary. Without the aid, that result would not be achieved as a counterfactual. The Commission also checks that the aid is transparent and non-discriminatory, which means that schemes are the preferred option as compared to individual aid to one single beneficiary. And of course, it is double-checked, the checks and balances on competition is that the measure should not have undue distortion, should not entail undue distortion of competition. And who is now the beneficiary of aid for the coordination of transport? So we are talking about rules enshrined in the state aid railway guidelines. Of course, those guidelines speak of aid to railway undertakings. But as you can see, the understanding and the meaning of coordination of transport is very broad, and it has a very strong intermodal and interoperability focus. And that's the reason why the European Commission has applied those principles by analogy also to other actors other than railway undertakings, which are key actors in the logistic chain, in the intermodal chain. So those actors which are that belong to the sectors covered to Article 93, road, rail, and inland waterways, but also to those who contribute to the modal shift and to the modal shift to greener transport modes and solutions. And I'm talking about freight forwarders, multimodal transport operators, logistic companies, but also inland waterway operators. And in particular, when talking about logistic companies and multimodal transport operators, I'm talking about those beneficiaries that are the decision makers, that are the so-called, I would say, travel agents of transport. They decide where to put freight. They decide which transport mode and transport solution to use, which means that they are the relevant decision makers on greener transport. So talking about short sea shipping and maritime measures, or let's say aid schemes that were approved involving short sea shipping, which the Commission approved under Article 93. There are only 2 cases that were approved very recently. And the first aid scheme is an Italian scheme from Friuli Venezia Giulia region. You will find in the slide the hyperlinks, so you can get all the details on these measures. What is important to flag is that this aid measure is a kind of revision of the regional strategy supporting intermodal transport. The region had has a long history of public incentives to support intermodality. And the previous measures were, in particular, involving short sea shipping, were notified and then approved by the Commission in the context of the rules of the maritime transport guidelines, because the incentives were granted to the ship owners for the launch of new services. Now, in this new scheme that was approved in March of this year, the region changed the approach and decided to grant the incentives to the travel agents, to the mode of the transport, of freight transport, meaning the benefit is given to multimodal transport operators that organize intermodal transport, involving rail, but also short sea shipping, and at least one other transport mode, road on short sea shipping or rail. So intermodality, including short sea shipping. The measure concerns long distance, but also intra-regional services with different, of course, aid intensities to tackle the specific needs of those specific services and routes. And the eligible costs, so the subsidy is quantified in terms of external cost savings. How much, let's say, is saved in terms of external costs, thanks to the greener transport solution, thanks to the intermodal transport, as compared to the counterfactual, more polluting road-only alternative. This is a scheme of 30 million euros that will run until 2027. And this is one example, the first, I would say, case since the adoption of the State aid railway guidelines and the coordination of transport rules, where short sea shipping is involved in an aid incentives, and the aid is approved under Article 93. The second example is the Spanish very recent decision, again, end of April this year. It is a recovery and resilience facility measure of the Spanish government, and it concerns eco-incentives for the use of maritime freight transport. Again, it is a scheme that is approved, that was approved by the Commission as aid that meets the needs of coordination of transport under Article 93. And short sea shipping is involved, but the beneficiaries of the aid are road hauliers, including freight forwarders, logistic operators, and transport companies, provided that they use certain eligible maritime freight services on international maritime routes that, again, and similar to the previous measure, Italian measure, represent an alternative to road-only transport. And again, the aid is quantified in terms of external cost savings. So in both cases, we have beneficiaries that are road transport operators, which use, let's say, which set up and use short sea shipping and maritime services in the organization of the transport, of the freight transport. And the aid is quantified in terms of external cost savings. The Spanish scheme reproduces one of the best practices subsidized under the Connecting Europe facilities, which is the Mid-Atlantic project. And it has a kind of upgrade, green upgrade, as compared to the previous Italian scheme, because it takes into account, the aid takes into account the environmental performance of the vessels and the land vehicles used to carry out the transport freight service. And these two cases explain and clarify how the state aid rules are very flexible and can be used to subsidize short sea shipping under Article 93 in a different way as compared to what the maritime guidelines allow. So it is a different toolbox, but which is still available and allows for strong incentives to the sector. And now, please let me conclude my presentation with some highlights on the project that we are now involved in DG Competition in my unit, the revision of the state aid railway guidelines. These guidelines are under review, and the new rules are meant to be planned to be adopted by, optimistically, by the end of 2023. The project has a very strong intermodal focus, and in particular, due to the new context, which takes into account the new priorities of the Green Deal, and of course the ambitious targets of the Green Deal communication, as well as the very specific transport targets set out in DG Move's communication on the sustainable and smart mobility strategy, which provide that transport by inland waterways and short sea shipping should increase by 25% by 2030 and by 50% by 2050. So in the light of these ambitious targets, we have had a critical look at the railway guidelines as we have implemented them since 2008. We concluded that those guidelines are really outdated, but they have important building blocks, in particular the section 6 concerning coordination of transport, which can be really useful and precious to help meeting these ambitious targets. And what are the main drivers of the revision that we are now taking into account in the current review? We want transport to, we want to support, let's say, and accelerate the achievement of the green and digital transition in transport, in rail transport, and in intermodal transport. We want to support new entrants in the transport market. We want to update the toolbox of instruments for member states so that there are more opportunities and more generous opportunities to subsidize transport and intermodality. And in particular, we want to simplify state aid procedures, which is a key issue for member states. And how to do this? Well, we will expand the scope. We intend to expand the scope of those railway guidelines to go beyond railway undertakings and include also the key actors in the logistic chain, the decision makers, as I said, meaning those road and land transport operators that decide where to put freight and to take freight off the roads, to decongest roads. As regards interoperability, we will provide more aid instrument and increase, we will take into account increasing the current aid intensities. We will also have a close look at competition conditions to allow for new entrants to tackle the current barriers to entry into the market. And we will also look into cohesion aspects to take into account the specific needs of certain disadvantaged regions, and to take into account the need, if justified, to set up rules for public service obligation in the freight transport sector to be seen and to be assessed in the ongoing revision. And we will also introduce block exemptions for state aid to the coordination of transport. And the project has two main legs: the revision of the railway guidelines in this intermodal, with this strong intermodal focus. And on the other hand, we will set up a block exemption. For the moment, we need the Council to enable the Commission to block exempt also transport, in particular coordination of transport. So the process is ongoing also in the parallel procedural path of the revision. Where we are and next steps, Last year, we launched the consultation on the roadmap of these projects, and we also launched a public questionnaire on youth survey that ran until mid-March of this year. In the meanwhile, we have consulted the key stakeholders, in particular the European main associations. And we are now assessing all the feedbacks provided by stakeholders. And in the course of this year, we will conclude, let's say, we will bring forward the impact assessment report that will underpin the drafting of the new guidelines, which are expected to be published in 2023 for member states consultation and hopefully adopted by the end of 2023. And in the last slide, you will find the key links to follow real time the various steps of the process and to see where we are. So that's it. I hope I've not been too long, and I'm happy to get any questions and to leave you continue the debate in the panel.
Olga, thank you very much. Olga, thank you very much for the presentation. Fantastic synthesis and a lot of contents of great interest for all of us. I see that to this webinar are participating a lot of people, and particular relevant stakeholder for the sector and people who is working to new scheme incentives. So this information are very useful, and is thank you for also for your availability to discuss always all the issues before and during the process of decision making. So thank you very much for this. I see that we have not we don't have a question to answer, and so in order with our agenda, we can have a short break, and we can come back here at in 10 minutes and 11:30 to start with the discussion table of maritime stakeholders. So have a good break, and in 10 minutes we come back here. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you to everybody. I will start the discussion table. We would like to all speakers for the availability to attend our meeting. And as we said before, the 21-27 is a period of great importance for short sea shipping that will have a crucial role in facing challenges of transport in the upcoming year. In our panel, we have Antonio Gongora from Porto del Estado, Isabel Rockbost from Expo, and Lorenzo Matacena from Confitarma, and Dario Bazargan from Assarmatori. I would like to start with Antonio. We worked together with Portugal and French in the last year for the development of the Mid-Atlantic Eco-Bonus project, with the aim to promote an eco-incentive scheme for the motorways of the sea, based also on the results of the Italian eco-bonus practice. So I asked to Antonio to give us some update regarding the Spanish eco-incentive program for 2020-24. And please, Antonio, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Thank you to the ESN and to the Italian colleagues for the organization. Also happy to join with the rest of the panelists in this table. My name is Antonio Góngora. I work for the Spanish Ports Agency, depending on the Ministry of Transport. And we have been one of the promoters of this project that has been already mentioned, the Mid-Atlantic Ecobonus, trying to propose a common EU approach to these eco-incentive schemes. So indeed, for us, within the ministry, this has been the main reference to design and to push these programs. I will now share a brief presentation with some ideas. Let me wait here. Is it okay? Everybody?
Yes, thank you. Everything is fine.
Okay, now I will put in. Now, I think it's the right one. Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you. Well, as I said, our main reference has been the methodological approach to eco-incentives that we set in the Mid-Atlantic Ecobonus project, where the target, of course, is the sustainable free transport services, with a view, and this was at the request of the DG Move, to meet the potential needs of all modes of transport and all EU regions. So this is not only about, let's say, maritime transport in the Mediterranean. So the methodological approach is open or is compatible with, should be compatible with any scheme. The main strength maybe of the eco-incentive is that this is a form of aid which is not linked to the financial deficits of an action, which is the classical approach when we talk about funding on infrastructures, but to the actual external cost savings that are attained as a result of the action, what we called in the project the socioeconomic and environmental merit. And the external cost factors that we measure within the eco-incentive are also the classical ones. On the environmental side, the greenhouse gas emissions reduction, the air pollution reduction, the accidents. On the socio-economical side, the accidents, congestion, and noise. And we believe that although this project was started before the Green Deal, indeed, it started before the Paris Agreement, I must say, because we are in a very big transition. The last framework, 1320, has been a transitional framework. Although we started in 2014, we believe that this approach is very much aligned with the new set, with the reset, as it was mentioned, of the Green Deal, because at the end of the day, the Green Deal is a goal-based deal, targeting a specific reduction on the emissions of transport to a neutral economy. So, which could be, as we see, this is only a synthesis, how these eco-incentives could be inserted into the framework in the EU that is used in the EU to push, to boost sustainable freight transport services. Of course, we have the regulation, which is setting the industry standards, and we have a very close example in the maritime with the sulfur cap as from 2020 at global level with the IMO. But so this is mandatory. This is regulation setting the industry standards. And then we have the boost. How can we promote or boost the sustainability in the mobility patterns within the EU? And we have two types of incentives: negative incentives, of course, and positive incentives. In the negative incentives, it is maybe the classical approach to services, which is applying the polluter pays principle, which operates, as I said, as a negative incentive. And we also have this approach now in the upcoming regulations within the Fit for 55, when we talk about the ETS EU or the fuel EU maritime, at the end of the day, what we have is charging measures or penalty measures, let's say. So this is an approach to boost the market. And then we have on the positive side, the EU funding mechanisms and also the state aids. On the EU, we have these programs which mainly are devoted to infrastructure in the context of the Trans-European network, which mainly focus infrastructure and of course also facilities and so on linked to digitalization and so on, but the target is not really services, although we have within the current regulation the sustainable freight transport services article in the regulation, but it is mainly on infrastructure, and we have the CEF mechanism and also other programs. Lately, we have seen a development of the EU financial instrument complementing this grant. So this is, let's say, the classical approach during the last framework, mainly focused on infrastructure. And then we have the state aids, which, yes, indeed, they are, as we saw in the first presentation, it's from decades already that member states has been trying to push transport market and transport services with some sort of incentives to services. So this is the current situation. So eco-incentives could operate within these two blocks as a form of grant, as I said, linked to external cost, as a difference to the infrastructure, which is linked to internal cost, capital cost mainly. So we see a potential complementary between the state aids and the eco-incentives under the EU umbrella, where the eco-incentive has this rationale of rewarding for actual socio-environmental, socio-economic and environmental merit, as a difference from the classical approach where the goal is to compensate financial loss. And using cost-benefit analysis in the case of eco-incentive, the main tool, as we will see now, is the handbook on the external costs of transport. The main features of the common approach, maybe the ones, just to summarize, the member states in the common approach are proposed as promoters of these schemes. So they would be responsible for the design of the schemes, for the implementation, and also for the budget. So indeed, state aid rules applies, following the very interesting presentation of the previous speaker from DG.com, which will depend, of course, on the primary objective of the scheme, of the scheme design. It is also this possibility to combine efforts from the EU and the member state financial support, which we see also this as an opportunity. At the end of the day, we are incentivizing based on reduction of emissions, which are monetized. So we can see clearly, for instance, what part of these savings are due to greenhouse emissions, which is a global impact. So this could be the part of the co-finance by the EU, whereas the member states could be more focused on the local impacts, SOx, NOx, or particles, and of course, accident, congestions, and so on. So there is also an opportunity to find a combined scheme, a financial scheme, a co-financing of these schemes. The idea here, and I linked to my previous speaker again, is not these incentives are not conceived as startup aids, which is the classical approach in the maritime. This was maybe a decade ago or 2 decades ago. Now we are in another context. So we think that the maritime sector is mature, is developed, and the main challenge now is to help the sector to meet the deal the Green Deal, so to improve the environmental performance as a sector, but also to reduce external costs in the, let's say, global picture of the transport, so integrating, coordinating with other modes of transport. Also very relevant for the approach is to have a common level playing field to monetize these external costs. And fortunately, we have the handbook on external cost of the Commission, which is a classical tool already and typically used for implementing the polluter-pays principle. So here in the co-incentives, what we propose is to use this manual in the positive way. So not only to penalize those who are polluting, but also to incentivize those, the forerunners, those who are really pushing and accelerating the transition process to neutral carbon economy. Also very important for the approach, and we discussed this a lot, is that this is neutral on how the socioeconomic and environmental merit is attained. Of course, member states, as promoters and designers of the scheme, they can incorporate certain requirements to the scheme, but the overall philosophy is that finally the co-incentive is proportional to a reduction of the external cost, no matter if this reduction has been attained by reducing speed or with technology or whatever option the market could find to reduce emissions and impacts, which is the final goal of the in this case of the Green Deal. And also important because this approach was very much based on the conclusions and outcomes of the report from the European Court of Auditors to the Marco Polo programs that you maybe everybody will remember. And we took into consideration all of the recommendations that the court made after this program. And one of them was, of course, that funding should be conditional upon results. So we are talking about a grant which is ex post. So only when the merit is demonstrated, the grant is given. So following this approach, what we have in very schematically is member states can design schemes, and with this common approach, of course, it is also possible to find multilateral approaches. We are not only talking about schemes at national level, but we are member states that are sharing markets, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, the Baltic. So there is this possibility to join member states in these efforts, combined with the European Commission, and to design schemes that in all cases, they must, of course, define the target market, the goals of the scheme, and also the merit that will be incentivized. So this would be the three, let's say, elements or basic elements of any design. So you see that there is multiple possibilities. We can think not only on the classical approach of model seat, of one track going to the ship and so on, but also we can think on rail. We can think also on road. We can think also on helping, this transforming the fleets, to more green fleets. So this will depend on the priorities of the member states concerned. So this is flexibility. But in any case, there would be an ex-ante analysis. This is also a recommendation from the Court of Auditors. This is very relevant. And maybe the most important tool here to assess the scheme is the external cost calculator. So we need each scheme should define and develop a specific external cost calculator based on the handbook of the European Commission to measure the merit that is incentivized. So this would be, let's say, the approach. as already described, because I think that Olga made an excellent presentation of the principles of the Spanish schemes, in particular the maritime. I will go again very briefly on the main topics, but following this approach and taking advantage of the Resilience and Recovery Fund, we have here within the ministry promote two schemes, one for the maritime transport and one for the rail transport. These have been already authorized, or with the compatibility with the state aid rules, and now the calls have been opened, and we are at the beginning of the process now. In the case of the maritime, the target market is the motorways of the sea, alternative to road, where the eligible services are those connecting the Spanish port with an EU port, and the eligible units in this case are the RoRo units, trailers and semi-trailers. The goals of the scheme, the primary goal, because I think it was very interesting, this accent that Olga put in his presentation here. The primary goal of the scheme is, of course, the classical approach to contribute to modal shift, to what we could call an environmental modal shift. So a modal shift which demonstrates a socioeconomic and environmental merit, because we face the reality that sometimes the maritime transport is not beating the road so clearly. It will depend also on how the vessel develop and performs in terms of environmental aspects. So this is the primary goal, and this is maybe why it was assessed through the Article 93, as it was mentioned. But there is also an indirect objective, which is very relevant, that is improving the environmental behavior for maritime transport. And this is because each maritime service is going to be measured within a specific eco-incentive. So it will not be the same, the eco-incentive for all the services. It will depend on the environmental performance. So indirectly, we expect this could help the sector to bet for more environmental solutions. The merit incentivized here is the classical approach, again, the external cost savings by eligible units when using maritime services. The maritime is measured on real, so we take the vessel, the ship owners propose the services, and an eco-incentive is calculated for each service, taking into account the vessel, the fuel consumption, filters, engines, the size of the vessel, which is very important, also the speed and so on. And on the road we take averages, of course, of the fleet between Euro 4 and Euro 6, and then we compare and we estimate the eco-incentive. We are now in this process within the Spanish scheme. The beneficiaries is the road transport, so this is a demand approach. And as I said, the state aid rules here, the compatibility has been assessed through Article 93. The overall budget is 60 million euros for 3 years, with a possible extension to 2026. We also launched an eco-incentive scheme to rail. In this case, the target market is rail freight transport in the Spanish network. The goals here are to improve the environmental behavior of the rail freight transport. It happens that it's similarly to what happened in the maritime. The road sector has improved very much his environmental behavior, and now when we compare a truck with the rail or with the vessel, it's not as when we did it 10 years ago. So this is an exercise that we also made on the rail, and certain diesel tractions in the rail are not that good when compared to the road. In any case, as in the maritime, rail still beats in many cases in terms of environmental performance, the road, environmental and socioeconomic performance. And the other goal is to increase the market share of the rail freight transport, which is a goal of the EU, but also a goal with the internal strategy of the ministry. In this, the merit incentivized is very similar to the maritime, to compare the unit going by rail against the unit going only road in the relation of transport. The rail is measured on real again, so we take into consideration the rail traction and the rail utilization rate of the train, and the road again is on average as in the maritime. In this case, the beneficiaries are the railway undertakings. Really, here it is very also important to clarify that eco-incentives is not necessarily a grant to demand. It could be to also to supply to the suppliers of those services. So this will depend on the design of the schemes. In this case, the state aid rules have been assessed through the railway guidelines, of course, under this coordination of transport, and the budget is similarly 60 million euros also for 3 years period. And just to finish this brief presentation, which could be, in our opinion, the going forward, the moving forward of this approach, the potential role of these eco-incentives. First of all, we think that, yes, this is very much aligned with the Green Deal objectives. So it's a way of rewarding transport services to help them meeting the deal, not only with penalties, but also with incentives to those who really improve the performance beyond regulation, of course, and it's complementing, because this is complementary to all the funds to develop the infrastructure, which is very relevant also. We see also an opportunity in the current revision of the TEN-T guidelines, which are expected to be approved by 2023, I guess. And there is this possibility to include eco-incentive schemes as projects of common interest within the regulation. Also with the EU funding, in the sense that I was mentioning before, there is this possibility that the EU focus the financing on the global impacts, because you have the savings disaggregate per emission factor. So maybe the EU could contribute to fund the savings on carbon emissions, whereas the member states would focus on the local pollutants or impacts. And last but not least, but very much related with the previous presentation, maybe it could be useful to have a debate and a reflection on the standardization and revision of the different state aid rules. We have seen that currently it is very interesting, this exercise of revising the railway guidelines that we have here from the ECOM. Also, we have these maritime guidelines that are in some cases also maybe they would need an upgrade. And okay, maybe there is here a debate which could be interesting. And this is all from my side. Thank you very much, and I am open to comments within the debate after my colleagues.
Thank you, Antonio, for the interesting inputs and for the overall presentation. You gave us very important questions. Also, you spoke about the revision of the TEN-T, and for sure it's important to underline the new concept of the European maritime space that overcome the motorways of the sea, but in good sense. So thank you very much. Now I will introduce Isabel, and we would like to thank for the involvement in our webinar. I would like to ask you, what is for you the role of the EU ports in delivering the Green Deal targets? And do you think that the eco-incentive scheme can contribute to the development of the short sea shipping in the next year?
Hello, good morning, and thank you for this kind invitation, and I'm happy to contribute to this workshop. Of course, we think, and we have always been saying that maritime transport and certainly short sea shipping is a sustainable mode of transport. We were a bit disappointed in the transport strategy of the European Commission 2 years ago, that the new strategy that their maritime short sea shipping was not identified in a way as a sustainable mode of transport. And we are happy that in the new TEN-T guidelines, short sea shipping is indeed recognized as a sustainable mode of transport. We think this is very important. We also see in the whole new TEN-T framework that the importance of the maritime TEN-T has been leveled up at the level of land transport, because before TEN-T was mainly with land. You do not see the maritime lines, let's say, connecting the member states and even connecting within a member state. You don't see it on the maps. And indirectly, there was like a kind of, or there is like a kind of priority for the land-based network. So we are very happy that this is changing. We also see what we think is important in the new TEN-T is that there is these ports are being recognized in a way as cross-border entities, and this is very important. They are the link to other countries in the EU and outside the EU, and also maritime links within a member state are also now considered as motorways of the sea, just as a rail link between two places in a member state are also on the TEN-T maps. So this is all very good news. And indeed, we are with this big challenge of decarbonizing Europe, of the Green Deal, of the Fit for 55, which includes quite some measures for ports and for shipping to green. And in fact, all the measures that are there in the Fit for 55 with the aim to green shipping also impact on ports. And there, I must say that I very much support all the eco incentives, and I think it's very important to stimulate short sea shipping. We in ESPO, we want to stimulate that, and it should be stimulated, because there will also be an increased need to have these short sea links. We are now in a very different geopolitical context. We probably need to step up some links and some new connectivities, new lines, as it was said also in the introduction. Because, for instance, with the whole situation in Ukraine, the Ukrainian ports are most of them at the moment not operational anymore. So we have to find other ways to get products out of Ukraine and so on. So this is only one aspect, but we also have the whole Repower EU, where we need to find different solutions for and stepping up the storage of LNG and so on. So there as well, short sea shipping will play an important role. But if we then look, and this is something, I mean, also with all the presentations and interesting presentations, thank you for that, that I have seen just before, I have a bit of a mixed picture, because there will be quite some support mechanisms for short sea shipping. But at the same time, we are in Fit for 55 with some measures that might make it more difficult, and maybe in a way, even if very well meant, making it more difficult to attract short sea shipping. I'm just saying, you know, that in the AFIR, in the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Directive, there is a strict framework upcoming for onshore power supply, we think so for plugging when the ship is at the quay side, for plugging it and connecting it to the quay for having electricity. We indeed see onshore power supply as an important aspect to green the shipping at berth. But we also see that this is an enormous investment, that we need a lot of public funding for that. And so if the framework is too strict and you will have it in all the parts of too many berths, it might lose, let's say, its efficiency. If you have it at a berth that is not used enough, it's a too high cost to have it. It could also, I mean, until 2030, there will also not be an obligation for ships to use onshore power supply. So then the return on investment will be very low. So that is something. And if we add to that, for instance, the emission trading scheme, it was mentioned by Puertos del Estado, by Antonio. This is bringing the maritime in the emission trading system is like a negative incentive, and then you will have a positive incentive with the eco incentive. So it's, for me, it's a bit confusing to see how this all will work, because it is clear that the ETS charge in the short run could make short sea shipping a bit more expensive. Of course, we know that the segments in the shipping segments that are in short sea shipping, for instance, RoPax as well, and so on, are probably the sectors, to also the very short links between two ports are probably the segments that are most easy to green. So maybe the ETS charge will not be so much there, but it can also be a price tag that comes on top of the current price. So there I'm a bit puzzled with how we do this minus and plus, how we see that together. I also noticed that the ECO's incentives will be financing the external cost savings, so not the funding gaps, but we must see that from a port side. If we want to help the shipping sector with greening, most of the investments are with a funding gap, a serious funding gap. So there, it's also something, it's again a different angle, but so there we will have to see how we can connect this funding gap to this saving of external costs. But what is important, both in all, and I'm very happy to hear it from the lady from the Commission, Mrs. Simeon, to see that the new schemes, that there would be, that it's not only going to the ship side, but also to the operator side, and I hope then also to the shore side, to the port side, so that there also support can be given, because this is also where a lot of the investments will have to be made. And as I said, the investments with no return on investment for the investing party. So I think it's all very interesting, because short sea shipping, and this is maybe also, if we see it in the broader context, you know that there are a lot of disruptions in the supply chain, a lot of hiccups. We do not know how this will evolve, but there is a whole debate on deglobalization as well. We see that many big shippers, so many big cargo owners, are looking for alternative sources or alternative origins for their products, and are maybe not taking their products so far away, let's say in the east, but are maybe nearshoring, reshoring, and finding producers and importing from more places nearby. And this could also give a new impetus to short sea shipping, then short sea shipping, of course, also with third countries. And there we are also, I think for Italy, this is also very important. And it's also in that perspective that we have also to look a bit at the Fit for 55 to see that we really go on a greening path, but on an efficient greening path, and that we are not maybe destroying the positive impacts of bringing productions and so on closer to Europe, which also have in itself a sustainable or a green added value, by making some provisions too strict, which make then again short sea shipping in the short run very costly. So I think I would leave it with these remarks, but I'm happy to answer other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, for your contribution. You gave us the point of view of the European ports, and we agree on your position. And for sure, the new Green Deal, Fit for 55, zero emission, and the new technology are the driver for the future. And for sure, we have to work all together to try to do a very big work for the maritime transport. And there are a lot of also funding opportunities within the next multi-annual financial framework for, the CEF, the Connecting Euro Facility, Horizon 2020 for the research, the InvestEU, and so on. So I think that there are a lot of funding opportunities, and as you underline, especially for the onshore power supply, for the green, the transport, for sure it's important the involvement of the public of the public funds, because for sure, that there are a lot of the investment that it's necessary to reach the target of the Green Deal, and to be in line with the EU mobility strategy that you mentioned before. So thank you very much. And our webinar, our scope is to try to put all together the main stakeholders, private and public, together to debate, to discuss, and try to synthesize in our position paper a common strategy, a common pathways toward the 21-27 for the development of the short sea shipping. So thank you very much for your contribution, Isabel. So now we are going to give the floor to Lorenzo Matacena from Confitarma. And as we said, Green Deal, Fit for 55, zero emission, and new technologies are key points. So we would like to ask to the Shipowner Association what are the needs, what needs to be done at the EU level policies, and what is your position on EU policy, in particular with different fleets. So please, Lorenzo, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, okay, it's okay.
I was just disconnecting all my other things. Thank you very much. I'm Lorenzo Matacena. I'm representing Confitarma, which is the Italian Shipowner Association. I will take first of all, I would like to give my compliments to the people that have been speaking before me. I've been listening to very interesting presentations, and I will steal very little of your time, since I've heard many of the things that I was going to say today before, and it doesn't make any sense to be stealing more time than needed. I will basically focus on the possibility to use incentives to trigger furthermore the switch between polluting ways of transporting goods all over Europe to systems that are that have a smaller impact on our environment. I will focus on two things. One of it is the eco bonus, or the mare bonus, so-called mare bonus. And the second one is I will focus on the possibility to grant help or state help to for the construction of new ships. Everybody knows, I think, that the mare bonus has been invented in Italy, and it has been spread all over Europe as a tool to make truckers choose ships instead of, when possible, instead of using the road. The Italian government has decided to put 105 million on the mare bonus for the next 3 years, except for 2002. So starting from 2023 up to 2026, there will be 105 million to be spent on those routes. We would like to introduce a new principle which says that to the ship owners or to the users of ships that are producing less than others, this advantage should be granted with a little help, which means basically that the Italian position is that the ships that are polluting less compared to the others, or the routes where you have ships that are polluting less than compared to the others, the incentive should be higher in order to trigger furthermore this policy of going where the consumption of oil, or when the amount of pollution produced is less. So that's the first thing that I wanted to underline, is that the Italian government has been deciding and granting this measure a consistent amount of money for the next years. On the other hand, I know that in Europe there are some countries that are less enthusiastic, let's put it this way, on the topic of state aid for new constructions of ships. I do agree to that to a certain level. because of course there is the risk of twisting the competition, the natural competition that there is between operators. I do think, though, that there is a space for the local traffic, for ships that are operating locally, because basically what we have been doing in the Italian in our association is that we tried to understand which was the age of the ships that are actually working in our market, and it comes out that if we divide the passengers market in three, and one is represented by cruise ships, the second one is represented by international lines, and the third one is represented by the short sea, which is generally speaking called, at least in Italy, the public local transportation. Well, in that third sector, the age of the ships is quite high compared to the others, and the possibility of the players that are operating on those markets to implement new investments, it's little, because generally speaking, we've been running a survey, and basically we're speaking about small operators, which usually they don't have the capability, economical capability and knowledge to use to implement new investments on those routes. So what we risk at the moment is that the whole industry goes further and decarbonizes, while the ones who are operating close to the shore and on local markets, they will not go together with the others following the direction of decarbonization. So even though we understand that there are some concerns on this topic, we do think that some kind of incentives has to be set in that specific field. Otherwise, we fear that on the small islands that are that we have in Italy, but not only in Italy, even I'm thinking about Greece, I'm thinking even about some islands in Spain. Well, those are the ships that are operating on those markets, they risk to be cut off, and we risk to have the same ships navigating and working on those markets for the next 20-30 years. I will not steal more of your time. I guess you are all aware of the fact that the Italian ship owners have not been sustained so far by the Italian government. So we did not get any kind of help from the Italian government so far. The good news is that by the end of June, we will have two different measures that have been studied during the last 2 years in order to help the companies who have been suffering during COVID. But I'm not wasting any of your time speaking about that, because I guess you are all well informed, and if you're not Italian, it's a useless piece of information. So I thank you very much, and I would basically give back the floor to the coordinator.
Thank you very much for the interesting points and for the contribution to the discussion. And so for sure, your contribution will be considered in our position paper. And so we give the floor to Bazargan from Assarmatori, and we would like to ask how is the recent increase in oil price influence your activities, and what is the next plan? And obviously we are interested to know your point of view regarding the EU policies adopted and your position. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon to all. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation. As Assarmatori, so as an association representing a large part of operators engaged inter alia in the motorways of the sea, we are very grateful for indeed this opportunity, and thank the ESN and Professor Benevolo for the organization and indeed the invitation. Thank you also for the question. Indeed, it has the oil price increase has a huge impact, and these, in our view, also need to be taken into account in the overall context of policies at the moment being discussed and adopted at national and European level. I would like, by way of introduction, first to underline that when we speak about intermodality, motorways of the sea, and modal shift, we are really talking about essential elements for the green transition that need to be supported, bearing in mind also what has been highlighted by other colleagues, Isabel, the fact that short sea shipping is a sustainable mode of transport. And if you look at our experience in Italy, the Italian schemes, the eco-bonus, value bonus that have been mentioned earlier, have demonstrated that the modal shift is possible. It is a success story. We can consider it as such, particularly if looking at data showing that indeed it has reduced the economic cost, the environmental cost, and the social cost attributable to the use of the road-only mode. But not only that, also it has played a key role in favoring the social and economic development of the territories and the local communities served by these links, these maritime links. Now, in this regard, we consider that the eco-incentive schemes at national and European level have an important role to play in supporting new investments, provided indeed that the criteria these incentives schemes are based on do not lead to alteration, distortions of the market, of the trading conditions, and therefore the level playing field. So it is important that these schemes, from our perspective, are designed and implemented with a view to incentivize the intermodality, road and sea, ultimately leading to supporting new investments in available technologies that could develop and indeed improve, upgrade maritime services. So it is very much important indeed to look at this aspect rather than only at the investments made. This is an important point. I would like also to answer your question, but also to link into what has been said previously by the speakers, notably by Isabel, the fact that when we talk about promotion indeed of short sea shipping and modal shift, we have to be extremely careful of unintended effects from some regulatory initiatives currently being developed at European level that could have the opposite effect. Reference was made particularly to some measures of the Fit for 55 package that we as Assarmatori have been carefully and closely considering with regard to the impacts. And indeed, it has been also mentioned that the inclusion of maritime transport into the EU ETS based on the proposal indeed would disproportionately impact short sea shipping by increasing even further the cost of transport, and therefore risking of basically putting at risk the benefit of other initiatives that have been promoted by a long time. I'm referring particularly indeed to the promotion of motorways of the seas and all the policy instruments that go along. So we risk the unintended consequence of seeing the benefits of this initiative being nullified by, again, unintended consequences of initiatives that would have a strong impact, and therefore also determining a potential modal back shift. And this is indeed an important point in response also to your question that I wanted to bring this attention. And I will conclude this here, also looking at the clock. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for your intervention, and thank you very much for all the speakers. To all the speakers for a very interesting contribution to the debate. Now we have a short time for question and answers. If someone wants to say something, some intervention, I don't know. I saw before that there was, I see that Engineer Pentrella of the Italian Ministry and Massimo Costa, Engineer Costa of Italian Ministry of Transport, are participating in this debate. They are working to the new eco incentives for Italy. I don't know if relating to the contribution of our speakers, they want to say something or not.
Possono scrivere domande e risposte.
Some question. Pentrella, no. If they wanted to say something, domande e risposte, they could ask. I don't know.
I will allow Mr. Costa to answer live. Please, Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Benevolo, Francesco. Do you understand me? Do you see me? Probably. I don't know. Just a few words. Yes, we are working on the new Mare Bonus. Probably the name, it will be another one. The problem now is to put on the table really a project to have a really incentivation to the modal shift. We hope that in few weeks to put on the table really something to be analyzed also by the Commission. Then we hope that this new project will meet all the exigencies, of course, but to be also realistic. Just to be clear, it's necessary also to be open to the market to avoid any discrimination. But we will send our product in a few days, probably to the Commission, in order to share our position.
Thank you very much, Massimo. And I see also that here we have Giovanni Colzi of DG Move. Thank you for participation to the DG Move to this debate. It's very important to involve DG Move and the European institutions in our debate. I remember that the ESN and short sea shipping official national offices are working to promote this debate between stakeholders and institutions. So if Giovanni Colzi want to say us something about this debate, some impression or not?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Giovanni. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Giovanni Colzi. I work in Maritime Transport Logistic Unit in Move, and I'm here today on behalf of my director, Magda Kopiszka, and we are really grateful for the invitation, since this is really a sensitive topic, and we are also interested in the next two events, the one in July, the second webinar, and also the Naples Shipping Week event in September. So we, together with DG Comp, we are following your issues and your concern. And from our side, there is, I mean, support and really interest, and also for the next occasion. And whatever you need, we are reachable. And it was a pleasure to be here today. So thanks a lot, and I am at your disposal, whatever you need.
Thank you very much, Mr. Colzi, and for your participation, for your interest in this debate. So I see that there are no other questions and answers, so I can close in time with our agenda this webinar. So what to say? We saw that we are living in a very interesting phase of the logistic scenario, in particular for intermodality and short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. A perfect storm in innovation, in logistic and infrastructure. We see the resiliency plans in all the European countries with a lot of money, a lot of innovation, the acceleration of institutional reforms. So a great opportunity to change the scenario for logistics in our countries and in Europe. We saw also the revision process of TEN-T network. So at the moment we are discussing the new vision of TEN-T we saw the new concept of motorways of the sea. We are the European maritime space and so on. The European maritime planning we are doing in all the European countries. So a lot of innovation also in the concept of TEN-T networks and short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. We are also looking to the new objective for environmental system, Fit for 55, for example, the ambitious objectives for environmental sustainability in transport in particular, but also the energy issues and so on. So a lot of changing and acceleration in incentives and investments in this new framework for transports. We have also a lot of logistic shocks, external shocks to these internal processes, because the resilience plans are internal plans. The TEN-T network is an internal scenario. Fit for 55 is an internal political issue, but we have also external logistic shocks. For example, the pandemic COVID-19 with the reflection on logistics and so on, the Ukraine war, and so all the problems for logistics and a lot of goods, flows of goods, and so on. So in this context, very complex context, we have the need and we have the opportunity to revise our vision and about the incentivation and the intermodality, and in particular for short sea shipping. So we need and we have the opportunity to revise and to promote more structural incentivation for intermodality, in particular for short sea shipping and motorways of the sea, which are flexible ways to promote logistic flows in the Mediterranean area and in the European area. In this context, with this vision, we hearing the contribution to the debate, we think that we need to coordinate initiatives, a better coordination of initiatives in different countries, and we need to adequate state aid lines, because we have we need that member states could incentivate intermodality in line with the objective, in line with the necessity, with the logistic shocks, with more freedom, and to promote modal shift, environmental and sustainable modal shift from all road to road railways and road maritime routes modality. In this context, ESN and short sea shipping promotion centers are working, are aging the rule between stakeholders and European institution, national institution, to promote the debate and to push all the subjects to better coordinate initiatives and to change the rules, in particular the maritime state aid lines, in line with what Olga Simeon told us this morning, with this innovation, with this new vision of the state aid lines. Thank you, Olga, for this. And so we invite, in conclusion, all the stakeholders and the European institution to use the ESN network, the short sea shipping promotion centers in all the countries, to promote initiatives to better analyze the processes of short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. We are at disposal of stakeholders and institutions, because we think that the ESN network could be very useful to this process in this context, because it's a European network of excellence, I think, in each country we have, that could facilitate the information changes. We can elaborate information and to contribute to this coordination of initiatives and contribute to the work, the important work of the European institution, with our experience in the sector of the maritime flows and short sea shipping and motorways of the sea. So we, at the end of this webinar, we will prepare a short dossier. We will publish on our ESN website the results of this meeting and all the information for the next meeting in July. And so thank you to you, to all of you, for the participation. Thank you a lot to the speakers. Thank you to the European institution, the DG Competition and DG Move, for the attention they have to ESN, and for the participation. And so I hope we can work all together also in the next months to elaborate the better schemes of eco incentives for each member states in Europe. Olga, do you want to say something to us in close of this for the conclusion of this workshop?
I catch the opportunity to thank you all again for the interesting session. And I link to your last words with a strong call to member states to engage in a dialogue with the Commission. When you set up your schemes, it is very important that we discuss upfront together, because things can be done in a better way if they are done together. The Commission needs the feedbacks from the member states and the knowledge from the operators to improve its own rules. At the same time, member states have and operators have the interest in looking more in depth how the EU legislation works. So it's a gain-gain process. So we really recommend to engage in early discussion when notifying, when outlining state aid schemes, as the authorities have done in the cases that I mentioned in the presentation. So thanks again, and looking forward to receive your feedbacks, inputs, and to engage in constructive dialogue with you.
Okay. Thank you all, and see you next time in July. And you can see our website of ESN to find all the information you need about our activities. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.